Would you please welcome comedian, not farmer, Will Anderson?
Hey! Well, I mean, that's the truth is, Pete, you know this, like being a comedian, being a dairy farmer, that's actual hard work for a living, you know, like being a comedian is 1 hour of work a day. Like being a farmer, you can't like send a less experienced farmer out to warm up the cows before you get out there, you know, just so they're ready for you when you're there. So no, I'm very happy with the choice.
Have you ever contemplated what it would have been like if you ended up in that?
In that world?
Yeah.
Well, you know, here is the thing. So my brother is actually, he took over the farm. So it's a family farm. So he does it with my dad now, which is fantastic. So all the pressure was off.
You've got a close comparison.
Yeah, so like technically there is a third of a farm in East Gippsland sitting around that like I could at some stage in my life get my fingers on. So there's maybe like, you know, 80 or 90 cows that could come my way if I want some fresh milk and butter around, you know, my place. But at the moment they're happy where they are.
We should welcome you back to the desk. It's been a little while, but you're in Melbourne for the Comedy Festival, but you nearly didn't make it.
I nearly didn't. No, so a couple of years ago, obviously, COVID stopped the Comedy Festival. That would have been my 25th year in a row. And this year it was the other big C, the one we can say on TV, which is climate change. And so I got flooded in. Ironically, I was coming back from the border of Queensland and New South Wales. I had been at a flood fundraiser, like raising money for the local community who had been flooded a month before. And 1 month to the date, there was a second once-in-a-lifetime weather event in our area. We are so lucky how many once-in-a-lifetime weather events we get. Like some people used to only get them once in a lifetime, but we've had 2 in a month. So it's just, when it rains, it pours. Like literally, it pours.
It would be nice to get to the point where we've fixed climate change so farmers can do benefits for comedians. That's what we need to get to.
I think they just owe us a few in return. That's all I'm saying. I mean, so basically, I have this tiny little community bridge that literally has been rebuilt by the community. It's amazing. It's the only reason that I was here. But it was rebuilt after the first flood, and I think I was the last person to drive across it before it got washed away by the second flood.
Did you do it?
When I got washed in. Well, I feel a bit guilty that it was destroyed after I went over it, but the fact that I was coming home from a flood benefit, I felt like I was being heckled by Mother Nature. You know, Mother Nature was like, "How dare you?" I was like, "Touche."
The poor people of the Northern Rivers have absolutely copped it over the past month or so. How's the community doing?
On a really serious note, that community, it's been interesting because part of my show is about the fact that I moved to the anti-vax capital of Australia at the start of a global pandemic and how I've dealt with, fitting it in that community. But then you've seen a community that's been divided for 18 months who suddenly had to completely come together because there was no other help for them. The government weren't there in time. The ADF weren't there in time. The only people that they had to rely on were other people. I mean, literally, the services industries, they couldn't get in there. So it was just like blokes in tinnies. Like, you know, in times of national emergency in Australia, you can rely on a bogan. And that is good to know. A bloke in a tinny, sinking tinnies with his dog in there, get in, I'll save you.
And knowing you, Will, I'm curious, has the government's flood response in some way made it into the new show?
Yeah, 20 minutes of it. 20 minutes of the new show. I was actually glad I wasn't here for another week because I had so much material to throw out.
So you also, just moving on to your podcasting, you are one of the heavyweights of the podcasting world, and Willosophy, if you haven't listened to Willosophy in particular, it's an amazing podcast. But you got into a bit of a blue with maybe the heavyweight of podcasting not that long ago, Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. How did it all come about?
Well, it was not my fault, is what I would say. Sometimes when I get in a blue, it is absolutely my fault, but this was not my fault. On Gruen, we have a segment called The Pitch, where we ask advertising agencies to sell an unsellable idea. And our pitch was, can you get unvaccinated people who are anti-vaxxers, can you convince them to take the vaccine? And there was a Sydney agency called Paper Moose, and they made this incredible ad. We might even have some of it. Can we have it?
You're having a reaction. You're gonna be fine. Hold still.
Wait, what brand EpiPen is that?
I don't know.
What's in it?
Medicine.
Medicine? How long is it research for?
I don't know.
What are the stats from Europe?
You could die.
What does Joe Rogan say? Call Joe.
I mean, it's funny.
It's very funny. In fact, somebody must have called Joe because Joe Rogan went on his Instagram to 13 million followers and he posted this post about Australia's like dystopian response to, COVID and all this stuff. And then he said, and they also have the dumbest propaganda. And he posted that ad as if it was a real ad. And then in it, 3 hours later, this is the best. Apparently, this is not a real ad. It is from a satirical show. So I would say, Joe, do your own research. That's my advice.
And mate, before we go, what's it been like to be back in Melbourne doing the comedy festival, just in front of audiences?
This is my first new show from 2019, and the fact that I can just go out and try to process everything that's happened in the last 3 years in front of an audience, it feels like coming home. It's amazing. It's such a powerful time to be in this city. The city is coming alive. There are so many good shows on at the festival, and I'm excited for people to come and see mine as well.
Just book tickets.
Yeah.
It's got people booking tickets.
Well, you can head to our website to find out details on where you can catch Will's shows live. Will Anderson, thank you so much for chatting.
Thank you for having me.